Hi, I'm Tom, a trainee for Superstore Games, and I've been set with the task of breaking down some genres in games for you, so let's get into it. The first genre I want to look at was MOBA. Now what is a MOBA, you may be asking? Well, a MOBA is a multiplayer online battle arena, which is like a real-time strategy game. Some examples of MOBAs would be League of Legends, Dota, and Smite. The target audience for these games are people who like thought and process behind strategy games, but also like the fast-paced action from other games. This is because in MOBA you have to think and anticipate what your opponents are going to do, while conducting fast-paced combos that are high on action. These games usually have a lot of emergent gameplay. Emergent gameplay is the complex situations that occur in video games that emerge from interactions of relatively simple game mechanics. In MOBA, these game mechanics are usually present in the form of abilities and items. These create complex situations while being simple because you have to adapt your skill progression based on what the enemies are doing, and this affects the items you would buy. This is shown in all three of my examples of MOBA, as in the games you have skills that you can level and you have the option to buy different items from the store, making that the emergent factor for them. Now I'm going to go more in depth with one of these games to make it a bit clearer as what do I mean by a MOBA. League of Legends is Riot Games' MOBA. In this game, the arena is the Summoner Rift map and it has 3 lanes and a jungle. This game has many champions to choose from, but each of them have their own little role in the Rift. The aim of the game is to take the objectives and take the Nexus, getting kills and items and levels along the way. This aim is similar to Dota's and Smite's, as in those games you also have to take objectives to win the game while leveling up, getting kills to get items. The user interface in League is friendly and easy to get a grip on once you know what everything is. Firstly, you have your ability bar. This screen shows you what your abilities are and when they're up and how many points you have in them. This is useful because it helps you identify when you're doing a certain thing, and this is also copied in the other 2 games that I mentioned. Then you have the chat, which tells you what other people in your team are saying, and the last thing on the bottom row is the map. This shows you where your teammates are and what their health and ult status is. Up the top you have the team kills, your kills, and how long the game's been going on, and the amount of farm that you have. This UI is very friendly and easy to understand, making it appeal more to the vast majority of people, as the game League's goal is to get everyone that is interested in games playing it. The game has elements of rubber banding in it as well, which is something that is typical for the genre. This is done in the fact that people with more kills are worth more gold when they are killed, so that the team that is behind has a way to catch up if they're playing well enough. This mechanic adds balance to the game, as it means that just because one team got ahead, it doesn't mean that they're going to win. The MOBA genre has a few sandbox features, but in no way are they sandbox games. The target audience for League is more casual players that want a challenge. Even in their ads, they don't take the game too seriously.
Oh, I'm just so incredibly epic. No one can compare. Oh, really? Or are you just playing baby games? My feelings. Why don't you try League of Legends? If you think building forts, grabbing souls, or defusing bombs is hard, then okay. It's time for a real challenge. With hundreds of champions and items, you're gonna have to use your brain and your fingers. It's like, dang dude, the strategy, the depth. This is you now, but this is what you could be. League of Legends. It's free, so grab yourself some gamer glory. Show off your skills and impress the people who really matter. Strangers on the internet. How much clout do you have, Dad? Rise through the ranks and make a name for yourself. Become famous. Become a legend. The people shall sing of your greatness. Here, I already wrote you a theme song. I am good, you are bad. I like making you feel sad. League of Legends. Play it maybe.
This is so that the games can appeal to many more people. The MOBA genre also keeps people interested with cosmetics and champions that can be earned through playing the game. In League, you get champion capsules every time you level up, and chests based on the actual amount of skill that you have in the game. The way that the companies present these games are quite smart as well, as they have jokey adverts which contrast the seriousness maintained in the game, making it oddly appealing for new players, and it also keeps recurring players interested in the genre, as they can see how the company also thinks things that they don't like are funny. They know that the audience is serious, so they try and explain this in a jokey way to get them more interested. The second genre I wanted to talk about is strategy games. What is a strategy game? Well, a strategy game is where the players are often in full control and have to make significant decisions which can affect the game's content or ending. This usually involves skill tree-based game mechanics where you can pick the path that your area is going to go down. The target audience for strategy games are the more relaxed type of gamer. This is because it incorporates a lot of wait times and thinking brackets, and there just aren't as many mechanics for the player to focus on. This would also suggest that the game is more aimed at the people that actually be able to think and follow through on their plans. This genre also has a lot of emergent gameplay, as you have easy mechanics to understand, but by doing them in certain orders you can create complex situations which make the game harder. 3 games that fit in this genre are Clash Royale, City Skylines, and Heart of Iron. In these games you have to think about your next move in order to progress and win, making it aimed at more of the active thinkers for their target audience, the ones that can sit back and relax while interpreting the next move that their opponent's going to make. Heart of Iron is a war and development game where the objective is to win the map by taking over the world. The game ties into strategy because you have to choose what you want to develop and who you want to put in power and what path for your country to go down, with each path and decision having a different outcome. This makes it strategy because you need to know when to act and how to act, and what to do while acting. This makes the game all about thinking and trying to anticipate your opponent's move, which I think is the essence of a strategy game, because each move should be able to achieve a goal, to go towards achieving the goal of winning the game. In the game, the UI is more realistic, with the characters being shown as actual portraits of real people. This gives the game a more gritty, serious feel. This would appeal to a more serious strategy game player. You can also play the game as different countries. This means that you can replay the game differently. The game has sandbox elements that you can pick how you want the game to develop and change throughout the game, which affects the end gameplay. You can also pick which country you play, which is a sandbox element, as it can change the gameplay. This means that they thought about replayability because they aimed the game at the more active audience. They must give them the opportunity to play from different angles, as that's what would appeal to them. However, this isn't always the case with strategy games, as sometimes they can be a lot more light-hearted and relaxed. For example, Clash Royale. Clash Royale is a real-time strategy game developed by Supercell. This game ties to strategy, as the aim is to use the right cards in order to destroy the opponent's towers. I think that it's considered a strategy game, as you can't just play your cards anywhere. You actually need to think about where the best place is to put your troops in order to beat your opponent and win the game. Clash Royale is a mobile game, so it uses touchscreen to control the game. The game isn't identified as scripted, but could be. There is no sandbox mode on Clash Royale, but the players want the feature to be added in future updates. Clash Royale uses bold, bright colours in the arena. This characteristic of the game makes it easier for children and people that like a lighter-hearted game to follow, because the game is a lot brighter and nicer to look at. The characters in the game are troops, e.g. the archers, the golems, the wizards. The names are easy to remember, appealing to the younger target audience, along with the house style being colourful. There are gem boxes which the player can unlock by earning it or spending money. This encourages the player to keep purchasing gem boxes by adding new content, and also keep the player playing so they can earn these boxes for free also. Both games would appeal to the same group of people, but it shows how diverse the genre can be. Finally, the last genre I'd like to talk about is RPG games. RPG game is a role-playing game. This is where you take a role and you have to pick the path that your character goes down while staying in that role. This builds character development as the player thinks about the choices they're going to make and what they're going to do to develop their character. This appeals to the audience of people that like to let their imagination run wild and the free spirit, as they have a lot more freedom and creativity to shape their character and shape their game. This genre has a wide array of emergent gameplay, as they have many different simple options, each changing the game in complex and different ways, and can put you in both simple and complex situations. This makes the games more interesting, as it feels like you can control the game world actively. The games that I believe fit into this genre are Child of Light, Destiny, and The Witcher. In these games, you really take the role of the character you play, with each choice you make affecting the overall gameplay elements in the game. For example, in Destiny 2, you have many skill paths on the 3 playable classes, each giving you different abilities and making the gameplay change, as you have to adapt to each of those abilities, making sure you aren't killed by the enemy while staying in your role, and also making sure that you can progress through the story. Going into more depth about one of these games is hard, as the choices you make change the game fundamentally, but I'm going to try to talk about Child of Light, as the choices in that just affect the combat. In Child of Light, you play as the main character Aurora, and journey through the land that has been set, which is set in a 2D platform style version, which isn't where the RPG element comes in. The RPG element of Child of Light comes in when you have the battles presented in front of you. These are done in typical RPG form like Final Fantasy and other such games. In these battles, you have a unique combat system for Child of Light, which is the action and casting bar, which is unique to this RPG as none other have used it. This just meant that when you were trying to use an ability that you had your character learn, you had to get through it without being interrupted, or you'd think actively about how you could interrupt enemies' abilities so you'd take less damage. The RPG elements of this game really came into play when you had to choose your skills and pick the way your character would progress. This meant after you leveled up, you would get a skill point that you'd choose to put in your tree. You'd have to pick the path that you wanted to go down to get different abilities and get through the game easier. With each character you pick up along your journey, each of them having a different skill tree, you have to really think about how you want them to evolve and how you want them to play out to best fit your role and the role your team brings to the game world. Due to the skill tree environment, you could have multiple people in your party all being damage, or you could be more diverse by putting skill points in one person for damage and skill points in others for healing and defense and tanking. This meant the game's elements were a lot more refined and thought out, so you could actually embrace the game in a lot more of a simpler and funner way. The game Child of Light appealed to many different people, as many people bought it just for the aesthetic alone, but many also people bought it for the strategy behind it, or just because they wanted to become the character and really get into the role, making this game more fit to the people that were aggressive gamers. This is contrasted from The Witcher's RPG elements, which were heavy throughout the entire game. In The Witcher, the RPG elements are what skills you want to evolve, as well as what you say to different people, and also what items you buy to make yourself stronger. Each of these mechanics have a different role in the story. Like, what you say to different people can change the way that they react and make you go down a different path. For example, your choices of dialogue with Keria Melts, one of the characters that you run into in the game, could change whether she lives in the end or she dies, with by you choosing whether she can stay at your training camp or try and bargain with the people that are trying to kill her. If you leave her to bargain, she'll die, but if you tell her to go to your training camp, she will live and you'll get to speak to her at the end of the game. Due to these factors and many others, The Witcher feels more emergent than any of the other two games, because you feel like your decisions have an actual impact in the overall story, because in the game Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, your decisions and the way you act does actually have an impact. Whether you pick Triss or Yennefer at the end of the game changes the overall outcome of the game, and if you try and pick both, that also changes the outcome. The skills and the items that you get throughout the journey also count as an RPG element, because each of them have different benefits to being obtained or used. This makes The Witcher more of a game for the people that can really think about what they want their character to be like and then execute it, and also have an idea of where they want their character's progression to go and then follow it through, because you have to think a lot about what you want to do in the game before actually trying to execute it, otherwise things are just going to go wrong. RPG type games keep the audience interested using things like DLCs and expansion packs. This keeps the audience interested as it adds more story and more content to the game which they can take their character through instead of just having to replay it or replay certain areas. This is good for the active audience that the games attract, because that means they always have something new to look forward to or new to do. These expansion packs also cause the players, because of their activeness in the game, to take a more active role to try and find what the best items or skills are for the next expansion pack and start preparing ahead of time.